The Zacks rank, value, momentum, growth, and income all factor into Zacks rank buys.
Welcome to another edition of Zacks Rank Buy. I am Brian Boland, and I am the aggressive growth stock strategist at Zacks Investment Research. And we're taking a deep dive into crypto today, and specifically talking to Mr. Wonderful, or as many people know him, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. And, a very big investor. You see him on CNBC all the time. And we're going to get a chance to learn some of his views on interest rates, inflation, and crypto. And, we have the screen here. We're looking at one of his companies, one of his recent investments. It's WonderFi. And we're going to do a deep dive into them. And make sure you check out the article that is below this video. It'll give us a little bit more information on WonderFi and where crypto is headed. All right, let's roll right to that interview with Mr. Wonderful and the WonderFi team.
This is Brian Boland of Zacks Investment Research, and I'm joined here today with Ben and Dean from WonderFi, and someone that's normally in a different outfit. You see him most nights on CNBC. You see him on ABC. It's Shark Tank. It's Kevin O'Leary.
Great to be here.
Thanks for coming. And we're talking about WonderFi, which is Kevin's new avenue into blockchain, and we're talking about what kind of impact WonderFi is going to have. And I think I've seen some of this stuff about you, about what you're doing with this. This is just an exchange, right? And I think that's the avenue of which you're trying to
well,
have
WonderFi is
the
a little bigger than an exchange because this is a very nascent industry. But the way I'm looking at it is as an investment, and I really believe this. Over the next probably 5 to 6 years, crypto, digital currencies, blockchain technology will become the 12th sector of the S&P. So we have 11 sectors right now. I invest in all sectors. And in any mandate, when you're investing in a sector, you can own up to 20% of a sector, 5% in anyone's stock. That's typically what a pension plan would do. And I work a lot with sovereign funds and pension plans. Everybody's trying to figure out what's happening here because you go to a fork in a road and you go, all right, do I believe in this? And if I do, how do I invest in it? And so this nascent technology is very early, and there's two big concepts around it. One is called centralized, and the other is decentralized. And what WonderFi has successfully done is brought both together. So for the investor like me, I'm an investor. I want to diversify my risk as much as I can, and I don't know with certainty which one of these technologies is going to win out. It doesn't matter. They may both coexist, and they certainly do inside of that one investment in WonderFi. Now, WonderFi has done something else that really matters to me, too. I've been looking at all these different jurisdictions around the world where the regulators are deciding what they're going to do with cryptocurrencies, and they're not equal in any way. Stateside, we haven't made a decision yet. But in countries like Canada, Switzerland, United Arab Emirates, Germany, England, there's different rules. And so, as an investor, you have to figure out how do you invest in the technology on a diversified basis, centralized and decentralized, and also there's more advanced jurisdictions where the regulator's way more open, and Canada is one of them. They are really the pioneer in so many ways. They were the first to bring an ETF to market that had Bitcoin, and the first to bring an ETF to market that had Ethereum. And WonderFi was born in that jurisdiction, in that place where the regulator provides them to add value this way. And they just recently purchased the first license issued in Canada, a crypto exchange attached to a broker-dealer. That's incredibly valuable because you're agnostic to the price of Bitcoin. You don't care if it goes up or down. You make money as it trades. And I just think this is a wonderful time for this company. And I've said to encourage the management, go buy more. Get more exchanges. Don't stop here. Let's just go to every jurisdiction we can and find opportunities.
So the exchange is the focus, at least for now. But where do you see the company going long term?
Yeah, as Kevin talked about, what we're doing is really building access to compliant, centralized and decentralized digital assets, financial services. So WonderFi, we've been focused on really simplifying access to DeFi, which is the highest growth sector within crypto, but it's really, really difficult to access. So we built a simple platform that just makes it easy for your everyday person to get involved. And we're working with the securities regulators in Canada to get that sort of licensed and approved, which would be the first of its kind. And then our acquisition of Dean's company, BitBuy, which was announced earlier this year. And as Kevin mentioned, they're the first licensed crypto marketplace in Canada, and the largest in the country. It's kind of the first step for us to make that move into the centralized side of things, and it's a really good platform for us to roll up other exchanges in Canada and then in other jurisdictions, as Kevin has mentioned.
All right, so as we're looking forward, what are the biggest risks out there for your company right now?
I think one of the really, it is an opportunity, is the regulatory landscape. I think for any companies operating in the digital asset space, regulation, whether it's Canada, the U.S., Europe, any international jurisdictions, you need to have good dialogue with the regulators, and you need to have people that know what they're doing in that arena. I think you're seeing companies getting massive fines for operating like different types of lending products that haven't been consulted with the regulators on, and so I think that's a big risk. But if you approach it the right way, it becomes a big opportunity.
Right. So looking at crypto right now, Kevin, and I think you've talked a little bit about this in some other avenues. You're looking at it as just a basic asset, and it's moving along, correlated right now with the S&P and probably a little bit with the VIX. But if you look at it longer term, where do you see it going?
I look at this whole space a little differently from the eyes of an institutional investor, and I speak to them every day. Bitcoin is not a coin, it's simply software. Ethereum is software. WonderFi is software. And if you're willing to invest in Microsoft or Google, and I have for decades, it's software. It's all software. There's nothing magic here. So you've got this really strange philosophy of being anti-regulator, which is where crypto came from, a decentralized basis, and all these early adopters saying we're going to, go around the regulator and all that stuff. That's not the opportunity. The opportunity is to understand that this is just software, so you're going to allocate to it, as I'm doing, a 20% sector, and then I've got to diversify my risks. I can't just own Bitcoin or Ethereum. What else should I own? I should own WonderFi, because it's the infrastructure that's underneath that really matters. The exchange matters, the customer acquisition matters. And as this becomes more adopted, and which I believe it will, because most of these exchange licenses around the world only allow for trading of Ethereum and Bitcoin, which is very nascent, very early, no staking, no lending, no margin, nothing. All of this will come into the market, and you want to be positioned before that happens, because at some point, and here's what you really got to get your head around as an investor, at some point, the regulators will regulate this, and it'll become a regulated asset. At that point, sovereign funds running 50, 100, $1 trillion, those are the people I work for in the indexing business, are going to allocate 1% to 3%. And when that happens, Katie bar the doors, because they don't think short term. They're simply saying, I'm going to allocate to whatever asset it is, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, Polygon, whatever it is. And those assets will then have stability like they've never had before. The reason there's so much volatility in Bitcoin is there's no institutional support. For all of the talk and the excitement about Bitcoin, no major institution owns it. And they won't until it's regulated. But when they do, you want to be long that asset. It's no different than prime real estate in Boston or New York. I mean, I've invested in real estate my whole investment life. It's an asset. I consider Bitcoin the same thing. So we're so early. We're in the first inning here. And I'm trying to diversify my risk every way I can. And WonderFi is one of the ways I'm doing it, because it's an infrastructure play.
Right, so as we think about the infrastructure play, and you're thinking about the other big exchanges, are they going to be coming after you in the near-term future, or is it something that's, you certainly have like a 3-year head start on them?
I would say certainly within Canada, as the first licensed marketplace, we do have a head start in Canada, and we believe that what we've done on the regulatory front in Canada will help us move into other markets. So I believe there is a huge competitive advantage in being one of the licensed marketplaces globally, and within a framework that I guess is like embracing crypto and looking to build those frameworks to allow companies like ourselves to grow. And certainly being the first mover within that should be an advantage within Canada, and then we'll look to expand that and take what we've learned in Canada globally.
And there's some of these extremely strong regional brands like BitBuy that dominate the Canadian market, and we're at a stage where in Canada, for example, there's over 35 exchanges serving the population in Canada, which is a very high number. So we've reached a point where we're ready for consolidation, and we're definitely seeing it. There is a ton of interest and excitement in being able to consolidate and take on the global players. And as we look into other markets like Australia, the US, some European jurisdictions, you see strong regional brands like this, and that's a big opportunity because they have more pull than the global brands that are trying to expand into these places, like Coinbase, into markets that they're not familiar with.
All right, Kevin, Ben's just talking about the idea of, build versus buy, and then with a brand on top of it. And when you have all these exchanges already out there, how does an investor like yourself look at the concept of build versus buy at this point in the game in this space?
The only thing I care about is customer acquisition cost. When you get scale, your cost of customer acquisition goes down. If you're starting from scratch today, it's too late. So BitBuy, 375, almost 400,000 accounts, that's impossible to catch up to. All he has to do is execute. That's it. No one will catch up to him. And so at the end of the day, that's how you have to look at it as an investor. You want to take a lot of risk, invest in someone who has no customers, because they'll burn so much cash trying to build customer base, it's going to be brutal. And so I try and avoid that. What attracted me to WonderFi is this mentality about consolidating accounts, which makes so much sense, and then cross-pollinating goods and services. Once I have an account set up and the regulators start to allow for more activity, I'm already there. You already have me. I'm captured already. I'm not going to set up another account when I can get everything I want from WonderFi. That's the whole idea. That's the investment premise. And the other thing to think about, it's not like owning Bitcoin where you have this massive volatility. This is infrastructure. This is where you have to go to build out the promise of what digital is going to be. And so for me, this is a very good long-term investment and good execution at management for customer acquisition. That's it.
And if we talk about like inflation, I think that's kind of the big thing right now. We heard last year at this time there was the start of used car prices moving up. Now we're up 40% on most used cars. What is it going to take to get rid of this inflation? I know you've had your opinion about the Fed, and you're calling for 3 hikes. But what can really be done? How are we going to get out of an inflationary period? No one's seen this in 20 years, so we're not used to it.
Yeah,
what is the guidance from Kevin O'Leary on this?
So what's going to happen here is the Fed will make a decision shortly whether it'll be 25 or 50 basis points in the first hike. The market's ready for either. What they're concerned about is they can't ramp it up too quickly because they've got this massive supply chain problem. That does not help it. When you make the cost of capital higher when you're trying to fix the infrastructure of the nation, whether it be ports or whether it be rail, whether it be the fact that we're 20% down on drivers. I live this every day with my private companies. I don't think the Fed is going to go bouncing through the roof on the old traditional 70s rate hikes, 25 basis points every 30 days. It's not going to happen. The country is still being repaired from COVID, so it'll be a more gradual effect. I think the markets will achieve about 8.5% S&P growth on free cash flow, and then another 1.5% dividend yield. So you're going to get 9% this year, which is more normal anyways, but a lot of volatility as people have the angst of the Fed moving, and a whole generation of investors who have never seen a Fed rate hike. Never. They've never seen a Fed rate hike. So they're freaked out, and obviously you're seeing that volatility almost every day. The S&P is kind of fibrillate right now, but that's normal as people try and figure this stuff out. So I'm quite bullish on the back end of this year.
Okay, interesting take. If we think about going back to Bitcoin and just the general atmosphere around crypto, are you guys bullish on the idea that everyone is going to be moving here and it's more or less a done deal, or is this going to be just a portion of the economy is going to be able to be there and accept it, and then the rest of us are going to remain sitting on our greenbacks?
Yeah, I think it depends on the time frame that you look at. I think in the short term, like if you're looking at 6 to 18 months, it's you're obviously not going to see that large of a segment of the population buy crypto assets directly. But that's also why it's important to have companies like WonderFi that are publicly traded, where people can buy the stock because that's what they're accustomed to, that's what they're familiar with, and still get exposure to crypto. But yeah, I think there's a number of different use cases for these different crypto assets. We've obviously seen a huge uptick, particularly over the last year. I think we'll continue to see that, and then in some of the developing markets, you're definitely going to see a more accelerated adoption rate there, just because their need for currencies like Bitcoin is just so much greater at this point.
Gotcha. And has Kevin given you any guidance as to when he's going to make an ETF in O shares, or involve you guys somehow in the O shares?
I would love to do it, but the regulator has spoken on ETFs with crypto. We're not there yet. What we need to get first, and there's so much debate on this, is we need a regulation on stablecoin. We've got $54 billion worth of USDC now. That's institutional in size. And I'm an early adopter to USDC, but even my own compliance department is treating it as a highly volatile equity, which means on a mandated basis, I can't own more than 5% in any one structure. So that is not what it is, because it's really more like a money market fund, but the regulator hasn't ruled on that yet. And you can stake that for interest, you can lend it, you can make 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. That protects me against inflation. So that's my argument to my compliance department and my own accountants, who have to sign my statements, and I have to provide them to the various regulators in different geographies. But we don't even have that decision yet. So we got to wait.
But in the meantime, what we're working on at WonderFi is DeFi indexes or crypto indexes, where in one click you can buy and get exposure to a basket of assets. And so
which is permitted.
And one of the first ones that we're working on is a Kevin O'Leary basket. So Kevin has recently shared with the world his crypto holdings and what that proportion looks like, and so
I can short this too, right?
Oh yeah, we expect a lot more demand for the inverse index, the inverse KO index.
The inverse, and
I'm a big proponent for diversification, because I don't know which of these chains, level 1, level 2.
Yeah, right. I don't want the Drexel three times.
So that's fine.
5 times.
I mean, obviously this is volatile, there's no question, but the whole idea of diversification is to have more than one bet out there. It's not just buy Bitcoin. I would never do that. I own 32 different positions now.
But you own no Bitcoin, straight up.
I do own Bitcoin.
Okay.
I do, but there's a huge problem with Bitcoin. It's not ESG compliant right now. You don't know where it was mined. It's a whole different story, but I can't be associated, because all the institutions I work for have ESG mandates now. They can't ignore that. Sustainability matters to these institutions. There's a huge debate going on. But this, it's early days, but clearly people are starting to think about how much power do we use to make these cryptocurrencies. And over time, maybe we'll start to favor ones that aren't such power hogs. It's an issue around where you make that electricity.
Gotcha. So is the greenback dead to you?
No.
No, not yet.
No. My guess, and everybody has an opinion, is that the regulator will choose a few competitive stablecoins backed by US dollar, and those issuers, whether it be Circle or somebody else, will have to become a regulated bank. That's what I guess. And I think they're ready to do that. When you get to $50 billion of assets, that's not going away. I mean, you have the risk the regulator could ban, USDC, but I think it's highly unlikely. It's too productive an asset. And we're going to be using it on all these platforms that we're building out here. WonderFi is doing a great job on. I mean, people want this stuff. And WonderFi, to me, as an investor in it, they simplified it. I mean, if you're an institution, I've got 3 people working on this right now, full time. I have to pay them. Not everybody can do that. These guys can make it very simple. You can just set up an account and start to do these things and be compliant.
Well, lots of information, lots to learn, lots more to talk about. Thanks so much, Dean, Ben, and Kevin. That's it for this time.